Good morning, everyone. This is again the social science core subject, Understanding Culture, Society, and Politics, now in its new learning episode. I am your course presenter, Teacher 𝗕𝗁𝗺𝗃𝗀𝗆𝗃𝗃, in collaboration with Teacher Christian Jane Batukan, the course content developer. Thank you so much for continuously subscribing in this relevant program via radio and Facebook Live. How are you, dear students? Now that we are in the second quarter, I hope that you are able to sustain your studies amidst difficulties and challenges brought about by the pandemic. I sincerely commend your hard work and perseverance, and that you should be proud of your accomplishments so far this semester. Now, with constant discipline, focus, and time management, together, students, i-shout out mo ito. Kaya ko to, laban lang! Of course, I constantly urge you to sustain right attitude, have fun while learning, especially as we now delve deeper to the remaining lessons of the subject for the second quarter of the first semester. Second semester is waiving and there will be another set of subjects ahead of you. Again, i-shout out mo lang, kaya ko to, laban lang. Alright, we now begin our new lesson. Now, this week's most essential learning competency. Examine the concept, characteristics, and forms of stratification system using sociological perspective. Hence, our topic for this episode is entitled Stratification and its Impact to Social Inequality. Learning objectives are define and briefly discuss concept of stratification using sociological perspective. And our second objective, determine its characteristic and forms. Now, the learning competency, which says, examine the concept, characteristics, and forms of stratification system using sociological perspective, indeed implies a comprehensive discussion. However, students, you will only be learning basics about the subject matter. Brace yourself in this another learning episode. Alright, let me present to you image. Tell me what it is. It is a closed two-dimensional shape with three straight sides. What do you see? Yes, it's a shape of a triangle. What else? Of course, others would say it's a figure of a pyramid. Now let's proceed. In a piece of paper, write down your answer to this question. What do you think the shape or figure symbolizes in society? Again, what do you think the shape or figure symbolizes in society? Alright, great job for the first writing activity. Meantime, just keep your answer, and next again I will be presenting pictures. I want you to contemplate on the given illustrations. Students, examine carefully the images that I'm going to describe or present. The first image, man standing on money, and there are three of them alongside is a pyramid. The next image conveys occupational power and status arranged by level. There is the landowner, or called aristocrat. There are also middle class and the working class. The next image is the classic example of social stratification, the caste system in India. So what do you think all of these three images convey? Yes, these images are all relative to social stratification and thereby the meaning or the symbol of a triangle or a pyramid in a society which signifies ranking or positioning of class status according to possession of wealth or resources and power. When there is ranking, positioning, or leveling in society, then one can surmise that there exists social inequality. Our topic focuses on how social and political stratification cause social inequality. Since the dawn of civilization, social and even political stratification has shaped and influenced the day-to-day operation of societies on social interaction and how the individual corresponds to his or her peer and the community where he or she belongs. Hence, how society grows and deteriorates is also influenced by social and political stratification. Now, what is social stratification? Social stratification is a systematic categorization of individuals and institutions in a society based on their rules or functions and statuses. Each individual is accorded with specific tasks or ascribed with a particular role to play in society. On the other hand, what is political stratification? Political stratification is defined as a systematic categorization of individuals and institutions in society based on power relations and status of power in the state. For example, in many cases, political functions are delegated based on the hierarchy of power, executive, legislative, and judiciary branches of the government, or delegated from central to local government units. When we say social inequality, it refers to the unequal access to social, political, and symbolic capital of individuals in society. This phenomenon exists every time individuals and institutions are categorized or differentiated into classes or distinct groups or socially constructed as different entities. These are the three concepts rolled into one in our lesson. When we recall the definition of social stratification, the key word is categorization of individuals and institutions. According to Max Weber's theory of stratification, a person's status or position within a stratified social system is determined by his or her relative power, prestige, and wealth. Wealth. It encompasses the properties owned by an individual as well as his or her material assets and investment capital like money. Examples of assets and investment capital are income or gains from engaging in business or venturing on economic transactions like trade and commerce, and possession of lands and other resources. In Philippine context, the traditional setting is feudal in orientation. When we say feudal, or also known as feudalism, this practice prevailed in Europe from 9th to 15th centuries. Feudalism is a type of social and political system in which lords or landholders provide land to vassals or tenants in exchange for their loyalty and service. Consequently, the system was introduced in the Philippines by the Spaniards during the colonization of the country since 1521. In effect, the traditional Philippine setting, which is feudal in orientation, wealth is primarily measured by ownership of agricultural land. One classic example is the sacada system operating in sugarcane plantations in Negros province. Sacadas are originally seasonal planters from neighboring provinces like Antique, who eventually settled and permanently live in the manor estates of their landlord to work in the planting and harvesting of sugarcane. Some prominent Ilonggo sugarcane planters like the Ledesma, Lacson, Hilado, and Alvarez families moved to Negros in 1857 due to its promising development. One notable landlord, 𝗖𝗁𝗁 Ledesma, was a Philippine sugar baron and revolutionary general. Lacson family was originally from Iloilo, who migrated to Negros when he was still young. Lacson studied commerce at Ateneo Municipal de Manila. His classmates included Jose Rizal and other Filipinos who later figured in the Philippine Revolution. He is notable for leading the Negros Revolution and for being the president of the short-lived Republic of Negros. Lacson Ledesma and his descendants are notable sugar growers in Negros, whom the family profited much because of the flourishing sugar industry that time. They belong to the early elites or principalia, a term for Filipino wealthy class. Looking back, during Spanish colonization, feudalism was institutionalized with the introduction of Spanish bureaucracy. This is the Spanish colonial political structure. Feudalism subdivided the country into different levels of administration, from the province, headed by a provincial governor, cities, municipalities, to the smallest political unit, the barangay. Filipinos occupied the post of gobernadorcillo or headed the city, municipality, or the cabeza de barangay. The lowest post administered the barrio. Overall, feudalistic relations resulted to an equal, oppressive, and exploitative form of social relations and production. Feudalism made local landowners wealthier at the expense of laborers who lived like slaves. Feudalism still persists in spite the land reform programs introduced during the American colonization of the Philippines, hoping to curb down revolts caused by agrarian problem. It was the rich and the educated classes who could take advantage of a manipulated land registration system that time and managed to have certified titles to their land holdings. At the end, during American colonization, the small farmers were in the same condition they were during the Spanish era. More of our discussion. We will be right back after this commercial.
The Radyo Z-eskwela program of the Division of Davao de Oro is being brought to you by Nueda Builders Construction and Supply Incorporated, Maverick Builders Incorporated, Mitch Construction and Supply, Archicons Architectural Construction and Supply, DB Construction and Supply, Hanaway Builders Corporation, Phoenix Corvada Tagum Gasoline Station, Master Construction and Supplies, Mackenzie Builders, GP&H Construction Incorporated, Metro Gear Construction Corporation, NEN Builders and Development Services Corporation, Max Mays Enterprises Incorporated, We Inc. Construction Company, Rangay Construction and Supply, East Sussex Enterprise, WM Construction, Councilor Boogie and Miss Marjorie Vertodazo, Icon Builders and Supply, and Apex Mining Company Incorporated.
Alright, welcome back. Let us continue our discussion. After the Americans left the country, wealthy landlords and the elite continued the practice of feudalism, especially in the countryside. Farmers remained poor and landless, while the landed elite enjoyed huge economic, social, and political powers. Feudal relations remained dominant in Philippine society. This is because the local elites were able to retain their land ownership privileges, wealth, and trade benefits, and political influence long after the Spanish and American colonizers left the country. In a research conducted by Bonifacio S. Macanas on feudal work systems and poverty, the Philippine experience, Macanas contends feudalism as an institution of aristocracy which flourished under the succeeding Filipino presidencies following the end of the era of Western colonization. Consequently, inequality and poverty can also be attributed to feudalism and its effects as seen in the very powerful control of the landed elite on the livelihood of most Filipinos and local business and industries, plus their ability to influence or control government policy resulting to unfair distribution of wealth and opportunities. Poor people remain poor. They are not economically independent and they cannot support a decent form of living. In a recent study, 80% of the nation's wealth are firmly in the hands of a mere 20% of the population. The 20% is the few privileged class who occupy the top of a stratified social system, while the rest have been striving to survive for their daily sustenance. Now, subscribing to Max Weber's theory that wealth as one determining factor of stratified social system, the next are the illustrations. The person who has much resources and money occupies the apex or the top level of a pyramid, while the poor occupies the base. The next illustration show occupational statuses in layers based on the exercise of power and prestige. Social stratification occurs with varying forces as well as differentiated in time in various societies. In Philippine setting, three types of social classes are identified: upper, middle, and lower classes. The upper class consists of elite families. They are considered the most productive in terms of resources generation and oftentimes very successful in their respective fields of interest and endeavors, be in agriculture, industry, business, and government. The elite has two general types: the new rich and the traditional upper class. Again, new rich are those who have humble beginnings and often experiences rags to riches turn of fortunes. Hard work and industry ultimately push them to the upper strata of society. Now students, can you think of a good example? Alright, I'll give you one, our Honorable Senator Manny Pacquiao. On the other hand, the traditional upper class is made up of descendants of powerful elite families who acquire their wealth through inheritance or birthright. Now, can you give an example of traditional upper class? Yes, the famous celebrity Kris Aquino. Alright, let's have a quick trivia. Citing Forbes Asia magazine, Forbes 2020 annual list of world billionaires finalized last March 18, 2020, 15 were from the Philippines. Clenching the top spot again is Manny Villar or Manuel Villar Jr. with a net worth of $5.6 billion for Villar Group of Companies. Now, where do the richest Filipinos live? Within Makati City, Forbes Park, the most prestigious residential enclaves in the country. It is where some of the wealthiest families in the Philippines reside along with industry leaders and foreign dignitaries. Next, the middle class. It is composed of small business and industry operators, mostly owners and managers, professionals, office workers, and farm owners with income sufficient enough to provide comfortable and decent living. The overseas Filipino workers or OFWs are also included in this category. On the other hand, farm employees, skilled and unskilled artisans, service workers, and people who may be unemployed or those who belong to indigent families or informal sectors fall on the lower class. This category is the largest in terms of number and relatively earns their living through subsistence. Subsistence lifestyle is manifested through these conditions. A family could hardly eat 3 decent meals a day. The daily income of the breadwinner could hardly feed the entire family, and the breadwinner does not have a permanent job. Now, what about power in the context of social stratification? Power is defined as the capacity to influence or control the behavior of individuals and institutions, whether by persuasion or coercion. It is also defined as the ability to exercise one's will over the others. In the context of social stratification, power is a potent element that strongly causes or contributes to inequality. A good example is how politicians wield power in the Philippines. Some local politicians can influence decision-making in governance that oftentimes favors the rich over the poor. Some of them can use public funds or government projects for their personal benefit instead of using said funds for public service. Some are even abusive that they can use their position of power to maintain and expand their existing political domain. In Philippine politics, this is the issue on political dynasty, with dividing opinion from various sectors. Now, for further reading about the topic on political dynasty and for deeper understanding as well of the historical root of the problem, I suggest that you read the article of Professor Rudy Rodil published in the Philippine Daily Inquirer dated June 2014. The title is The Self-Perpetuating Elite of the Philippines. I hope that you can also access this one online. Moreover, in an online article, What Divides Us, Stratification, elucidates power as basis of social stratification. Having power is positively correlated with being rich, as evidenced by the domination of wealthy males in high-ranking governmental positions. How? Citing research study in America, study reveals that wealthier Americans are more likely to be politically active as a way of ensuring their continued power and wealth. In contrast, poorer Americans are less likely to be politically active given their sense of powerlessness to influence the process. Now, this is also true in the context of Philippine politics. Poor people have no representation in the political arena and cannot assert their identity in the mainstream. Now, if wealth is distributed unequally, the same is clearly true also to power. Up next, prestige as determinant of social stratification. Prestige is defined as esteem, respect, or approval for culturally valued acts or qualities. How to relate prestige to social stratification? Many individuals gain power and wealth through their popularity as celebrities or for their achievements that earn extreme admiration from their fans and followers. For example, many Filipinos believe that former President Benigno Simeon Aquino III or President Noynoy won in the 2010 presidential elections because of the prestige of his father who opposed the Marcos dictatorship and the popularity of his mother who restored democracy in the country. Property or wealth and power are objective, meaning tangible. However, prestige is subjective, for it depends on other people's perceptions and attitudes. In case of Americans, most Americans want to increase their status and honor as seen by others. How? Occupation is one means by which prestige can be obtained. In studies conducted about occupational prestige in America, for example, being a physician ranks among the highest on the scale, whereas being a shoe shiner ranks near the bottom. The way people rank profession appears to have much to do with the level of education and income of the respective professions. To become a physician requires much more extensive training than is required to become a cashier in malls. Physicians also make a great deal more money than cashiers, ensuring their higher prestige ranking. Now, what about us? Are we Filipinos also occupational conscious? What are our wish or dream jobs? Why? Well, it depends on the context of time and cultural perceptions and values. Before, it was vocation of priesthood, engineers, doctors, lawyers, and nursing courses until such time that our choices evolved into vocation of seaman, PNP and military personnel, hotel and restaurant managers, IT specialists, teachers, stewardess, call center agents, journalists, as well as be in showbiz industry and many more. Again, depending on the context of time and cultural perception and values. But, to occupation must be added social statuses based on race, gender, and age. Even though being a physician is highly ranked, also being in a racial minority and a female may negatively affect prestige. As a result, individuals who experience such status inconsistency may suffer from significant anxiety, depression, and resentment. What do we mean to status inconsistency? Although being physician is a prestigious profession in American society, but some members of the society have more regard to white American doctors and preferably males. Hence, sex and gender inequality is a form of negative socialization in a stratified society. People experience social inequality because of their race, sex, and gender, among others. Now, what about social inequality based on disability? According to United Nations, disability results from the interaction between persons with impairments in attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. United Nations General Assembly of 2007. There is a high possibility, therefore, that people with disabilities live in poverty. They are likely socially excluded or marginalized. They are likely living in impoverished areas, have a low employment participation, and low level of education. They are likely to suffer from violence, discrimination, and lack of access to health care. Alright, now I want you to know that social stratification can be open or closed. This condition is referred to as social mobility. How it relates to social stratification, we will continue the presentation after this commercial. Alright, students, stay tuned. We will be right back.
The Radyo Z-eskwela program of the Division of Davao de Oro is being brought to you by 𝗔𝗺 Builders Construction and Supply Incorporated, Maverick Builders Incorporated, Mitch Construction and Supply, Archicons Architectural Construction and Supply, DB Construction and Supply, Hanaway Builders Corporation, Phoenix Corvada Tagum Gasoline Station, Master Construction and Supplies, Mackenzie Builders, GP&H Construction Incorporated, Metro Gear Construction Corporation, NEN Builders and Development Services Corporation, Max Mays Enterprises Incorporated, We Inc. Construction Company, Rangay Construction and Supply, East Sussex Enterprise, WM Construction, Councilor Boogie and Miss Marjorie Vertodazo, Icon Builders and Supply, and Apex Mining Company Incorporated.
Alright, welcome back. Social stratification can be opened or closed. This condition is referred to as social mobility. Social mobility, an individual's ability to move from one place to another along stratified positions of society. A society is considered open when stratification is based on social classes, where people's social position or status are determined by economic wealth, and income. Education plays a vital role in social mobility. It allows lower strata of society to move upward in the social order. In an open society, poor people can improve their socioeconomic status through gainful employment or starting a small business. Perseverance and individual achievements are valued in an open society. On the other hand, a society is considered closed when changes or shifts in social position or social mobility are limited, and in some societies, even prohibited. One classic example of a closed system is the caste system in India. People are born into their social classes, inherited from their parents, and remain there for the rest of their lives. Another example, the Spartan society in ancient Greece. Military men occupy the higher stratum, while other groups or classes below are not given a chance to move upward. Alright, let us have a recap of our lesson. Social stratification refers to the arrangement of groups of people along a continuum of differing categories that indicate differences in unequal life rewards and life chances. Social stratification can either be open or closed. Examples of closed system include the caste system in India. Race and ethnicity are one of the many causes of inequalities in society. Sex and gender, as variable also, facilitate the presence of inequality in society. Alright students, next is our assessment of the lesson. A song reflection, 𝗕𝗁𝗺 by artist Bamboo. So after listening the song, I want you to get one whole sheet of paper. You're going to write a reflection about the song in relation to the topic. Rubrics, knowledge, and content, 5 points. Organization of ideas, 5 points. Quality of writing, grammar usage, 5 points. So, here's the song, 𝗕𝗁𝗺 by Bamboo. Alright, we are done with this learning episode entitled Stratification and its Impact to Social Inequality. Now, here are the list of references about the topic. Students, I hope that you gain knowledge and deeper understanding about the topic, hoping also that you will help foster equality of all and eradicate human injustices and discrimination as well, and be an effective agent of positive socialization to people around you. Thank you so much for subscribing to this program, the Radio Z-eskwela. This is again the course presenter, Ma'am Emeline 𝗕𝗁𝗂𝗶𝗆, and also with me, the brilliant course content developer, Ma'am Christian Jane 𝗕𝗁𝗺𝗵𝗀. Keep safe everyone. To God be the glory. God bless us all. Until next learning episode of the subject, Understanding Culture, Society, and Politics.
Radyo Z-eskwela Executive Committee. The School's Division Superintendent, 𝗘𝗺𝗺𝗶𝗀 5. Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Romel R. Handayan. OIC Curriculum Implementation Division Chief, Karina S. Frasco. School Governance and Operations Division Chief, Dr. Ruben J. Riponte. Members: Cecilia Morales, Dr. Hilda A. Opeña, Dr. Arlene B. Lim, Dr. 𝗘𝗁𝗺 B. Calzadora, Dr. Dexter A. Siquinia, Nohara O. Pinute, Noemi P. Canales, Dr. Grace D. Pontillas, Virgilito C. Pabrices, Juanito Lapiceros, Engineer Norberto S. Manlangit, Jomar M. Dumupoy, Bob Dalan S. Milabat, Medard T. Ampit, and Paz Eugenia Villusino. Technical Working Committee, Productions and Communications, Lorely E. Quijano, Given G. Hinampas, Judyland T. Yu, Donna D. T. Bollifer, Mary Rose N. Resma, Riwen Manuel, Irene Lea C. Manguhon, and Bessie Aya N. Banians. Social Media and Packaging Team, Christian Anhara L. Martesio, William R. Ranara, Joan T. Iscoton, Roberto S. Acusar Jr., May B. Istaniol, Richard H. Arellano, Glee L. S. Blanco, Ralph A. Tabanyag, Angelo Gutierrez Jr., and Jade Karen Arais.